Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to my approximately monthly AMA. We have a whole bunch of questions as usual. There's a couple of them pushed forward from earlier AMAs, as we do sometimes, to make sure they get answered by the right person at the right time. But as always, we endeavor to answer all of your questions, and I believe we can get through what we have here. You can still put in new questions during the session, and we'll try to make most of them if there's a lot of questions coming in. I will just be reading the questions out aloud as well. If you're watching it, that might seem unnecessary, but we do understand that quite a few people are actually listening to this rather than watching the video. So I will just, for their benefit, just read the question very quickly. So let's get started, and I'll take the first question. What's to be expected in the area of asset tokenization? Well, personally, I think asset tokenization is probably the biggest foreseeable use case. I'm sure there will be entirely new business models that we will all be surprised by in the longer run. But for real world assets, I think it's a very big opportunity. So I expect that area to be very important for the space as a whole. And of course, that's something we're looking at as well. We have a couple of specific use cases on that. We're also going to make a piece of infrastructure to make it easier to engage with us in that area, a little bit like we have done with the Agora platform in ESG. So I think it's a very large area. It makes a lot of sense, and it's probably also the major door opener to the traditional finance world. So it's something we put a lot of emphasis on, and it's in one of our sort of prioritized verticals. So I personally think that we'll see a lot in this space, and we will of course aim to play our part in it. Next question, please. What's the status with Geely Corporation? Is it still, it depends a little bit, there seems to be a word or two missing there, but it's still on, if that's what you mean. So it's not still, and we are working with Geely. It has taken somewhat longer than we perhaps expected, but it's still something we are looking at. We're still communicating on an ongoing basis with Geely, and we still expect a lot from that partnership. Next question, please. Do we have plans for top exchanges like Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, etc.? Yes, we have the plan that we would like to get on them, but obviously these exchanges need to have the same plan. And I would say it is difficult to get on the very top exchanges. They have some quantitative measures, which is to do with volume, market cap, etc., where we are not at the relatively high requirements a place like Binance has. I've had several conversations with sort of senior people at Binance, and eventually I hope we will see a breakthrough there, but I think it comes via more tier 2 exchanges and increasing the volume and visibility of the token. Perhaps less focused on US-based exchanges, but it's an ongoing work. It's not easy. It's not because we're not trying. So we'll keep trying to do what we can to include some of the tier 1 exchanges as well. That being said, I think we have some of the more important other exchanges: KuCoin, Bitfinex, MXC. So I think we have a pretty broad geographical coverage, but it's always nice to be on more exchanges, and of course the big prize would be some of the larger ones. Next question, please. The Concordium ecosystem is growing, but market valuation is sobering. Does Concordium need a new round of financing soon? Well, if you look at the market as a whole, a little bit of a pickup here and there, and also a little bit of our pickup in our price from the lows. But I think in general the market is pretty sobering, and it's a question whether there will be the base of a broader based rally that will lift all boats, so to speak. So I think that would be helpful. Maybe the Bitcoin halving will play a role. A lot of people think that, but I also think we essentially need to work hard to create our own visibility and our own interest from the market. And if we get some help from the general market, I think that's only a good thing, but I don't think we can rely entirely on that. Does Concordium need a new round of financing soon? I wouldn't say soon, but of course, long-term financing is an important subject. It could happen in various ways, depending on valuation, depending on VCs, depending on other people supporting it. But I have personally given an assurance of making sure that we get safely to 2024 if nothing else materializes. So we have a fair bit of runway, and we will continue to make sure that we find ways to securing appropriate runway for the project. Next question, please. That's a little unclear to me here. Other L1s are able to attract new investors, projects, teams due to the rising prices. What are you doing to become more attractive to investors? Well, I think you've seen a lot of work around marketing, visibility, awareness, media, etc. in the past couple of months. That's of course something we aim to continue with, and overall it's really all about visibility and awareness of projects. I don't know, of course rising prices help to add that visibility and attraction, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think it's also a question of going out there, generating leads, making proactive sales efforts towards relevant businesses that can see the benefit of what Concordium is providing and how that might be suitable for their particular project. So I think it's a mixture of things. Visibility, I think, is a key word. Awareness around the project, getting out there, telling people the story, and I think we had good experiences with that in September, October, with a very substantial increase in social media mentions, in general media, and also in leads coming in a much higher level in those months due to the more proactive approach, and we have plans to continue that higher level of activity in the rest of the year. We have sat back a little bit here in mid-October, end of October, to analyze what worked best and what gave actually the outcome compared to the resources invested in them, and we are sort of through with that and have a plan of what we think is areas to focus on going forward, and you will see us also having a number of campaigns and announcements and other stuff to help us increase in visibility and become more interesting to more people. Next question, please. Other L1s seem to outpace Concordium. Why do they manage to secure big partnerships and Concordium hasn't announced a big one except Geely and Energinet? I think that's always depending on the eyes that watch what big partnerships are actually out there. I think the ones you mentioned in the question are indeed very important partnerships, very substantial partnerships. I also know that before Christmas we will announce one or two bigger corporates building with Concordium as well. As I've explained many times, in those kind of processes, it's not just about what we want to announce. It's also about what a corporate wants to announce and when and how and in what context they wish to do that. You know, when you're dealing with a crypto native platform, you know, an NFT project or game or something, they're very eager to secure visibility and to come out with announcements, as we also are, because we like to tell people about what we're doing. But you just have to respect that process can be very different for a big corporate, and really where it is a use case in their project, it is really for them to decide how we publicize that, when we go out with it, how we go out with it. It's not something where we can entirely set the rules, and I think that's just something you have to appreciate. There's a difference between, let's say, the crypto native space and the bigger corporates that of course are very interesting in the longer run, and there we kind of have to accept their process. But I'm very sure that there'll be at least one, maybe two bigger corporates that will announce before Christmas. So you have that to look forward to. Next question, please. Before the summer vacation, you talked about collaborating with other L1 projects. You mentioned you were working on several of the major ones. What is the status on that? That is ongoing work. We actually are collaborating, in particular with one of the, I think you would agree, a major one. Again, it's a little bit the same. Some of this is stuff around, are we doing the same science? Are we doing the same sort of accessories to the blockchain, and can we help each other there instead of duplicating efforts? So there is ongoing work. Whether there's an agreement to announce those specific collaborations or not, again, is not entirely dependent on us. But of course, it would be useful to tell in a bit more detail there. But I would say particularly around formal verification of smart contracts, around some of the science work, we are working with other projects. Next question, please. So far, there are more of startups and incubating products on Concordium, such as we've seen within the Bitcoin Founders Group. Do you acknowledge that Concordium needs partnership with big and established enterprises in order to compete with other top-level ones? Yes, I do acknowledge that, and I think, as I said, we have some examples of that already. We will have more of them. I personally believe that there are two important sectors in the space for blockchain. There is, of course, the crypto native that has built the space originally and has created most of the transaction volume and most of the interest and hype around various projects. I think we can also agree that some of these are fairly short-lived. You can just see what happened in the NFT space. First no interest, then huge interest, now back to a much more normalized level, and then building back up from that level. So you can also say that some of the bigger corporates, I think, are longer term commitments, more solid projects, and that's of course the other side of the coin, that you probably need a bit of both. One, to sort of be supported by the communities themselves as they have built over the first decade, I guess, of blockchain. But the long-term price is really for blockchain to be integrated into very serious industrial scale processes, and for sure establishing such partnerships are critical, not just to us, but to any level one blockchain. But I think we are making good progress on that, and I think we have announced several, and we will announce more as we go forward. Next question, please. Concordium risk dropping out of top 500, while the latest private placement rounds were valued well above 1 billion. Don't you think Concordium risk falling into obscurity? How to turn the tide? What about investors? I think you see a lot of projects that are trading at very much lower values than their peaks, and in that sense, I don't think we stand out particularly compared to many others. None mentioned, none forgotten, but it's really just looking down the long list at the CoinMarketCap. You should also always remember there's a certain survivor bias. So the things you see at the top are obviously people that are projects that either have gained above average valuations or above average traction, or have hung on to their valuations better, and others will then be further down the list. So you always have to remember the survivor bias, that you're not necessarily seeing the whole picture by just looking at what happens to be at the top at one point and what happens to be further down. I think obscurity is if your project sort of grounds to a hold, and it grounds to a lack of progress, lack of development, and we're very much not doing that. There's a lot of work ongoing continuously, and we keep building a better and better blockchain, which is absolutely among the best options out there, particularly for I would say more serious enterprises, etc. So no, I don't think that there's a big risk of that. And you could argue being outside of the top 100, being outside of the top 200 is already way down the list, and we have been all along. Clearly, it's an objective to get us higher up on those lists and be more visible. But in the meantime, as we work on that, the marketing efforts, the campaigning, the various initiatives, the lead generation, the going out speaking to potential projects is a different way to secure visibility where it really matters, i.e. with the people that actually desire to build blockchain projects. And as I've said many times before, where there's sort of a clear cooling of sort of the traditional retail investors in the space. That's evident just by looking at valuations, that the FOMO and the hype and the excitement that was there in 2021 is not as strong as it was. But what has, on the other hand, only gone one way since then is the more serious corporate interest in this space, where I just think more and more people are looking at it, more and more people are asking questions about it, more and more people want to know what this can do for them. And there it is, of course, for us and other layer ones and blockchains to explain in simple language, with examples, with templates, with turnkey solutions, what can this actually do to your particular company? Can it help you manage your supply chain better? Can it help you get better client engagement? Can it help you secure important data and the source of that better? And really that is what's going to drive this space in the long run. Of course, the crypto native space is also important, and there will be entirely new business models, and we have already seen some of them created in the past few years. So of course that's also important, but I think the retail investors are fairly fickle. They move from like something interest now something else is more interesting. Maybe we come back, maybe we go to AI for a while and see what's happening there. The key thing to the success of this industry, in my view, is that there's actually people building blockchain applications. There's actually people showing their own organizations that this makes sense, and showing their competitors that they gain an advantage, a competitive advantage by using blockchain, and that is the most important thing to occur in this space. Then investment follows, investment interest follows, but at the end of the day, it's for everyone in this industry, I think, to prove that this is actually a real value add to processes that can just be made safer, can be made more transparent, can be made more secure. And I genuinely continue to believe that blockchain has a really important role to play there. It does secure a lot of stuff that in the Web 2 world is not very secure and not very reliable and not very trustworthy. But it's about getting people to really deploy this into actual projects, actual use cases, where we play a role and where many others play a role, and then things turn from a little stream into a flood, and that's what we saw with the internet. That's what we see with any new transformative technology, and I think in general the interest in actually using blockchain for something that we know already but can be done better, I think that's a key thing to developing the entire sector, and we're trying to play our role in that. Next question, please. Why is it so hard for the team to list on tier 1 exchanges? Tier 1 exchanges, other big projects secure the necessary listings, some multiple listings at once, while Concordium seems to fade. Well, I mentioned a little bit before about the tier 1 exchanges, the very large exchanges. They are very picky, and they have very specific quantitative criteria for their decisions, and I would have the same if I was running an exchange. Of course, you want something with big volume, something with high market cap. That's natural. That's their business. So I think actually those criteria are applied very broadly. So I don't think it's that much easier for other projects at our sort of level to list on these exchanges. Of course, you have the BNB chain underlying Binance, which means that it's easier to list a project built directly for that purpose. You have the ERC20 token, which makes it easier to list with exchanges that are built on that infrastructure. And other projects like ours have our own infrastructure, our own standards, and we're not the only one. A number of other projects do that. And that is probably a bit of a hurdle vis-a-vis easy listings. On the other hand, it gives a number of other advantages in terms of uniqueness, functionality, differentiation, etc. So it's a balance, right? And I think we are actually on a number of pretty decent exchanges where many other successful projects are also having their primary exposure. Would I like more exchanges? Yes. Will there be more exchanges? Most likely. But there is a number of criteria to list on the very big ones, which we perhaps are not meeting today, and then you need to have another conversation with them around why it would be important to list a token like in a project like Concordium. And we are having these conversations to give other arguments, but that's of course a longer project, a longer process than just saying, well, here's a high volume token listed tomorrow, and you'll see nice fees deriving from that from day one. whereas you have to pull a longer string of arguments for projects where that's less so the case. But rest assured, we're still working on it. If not the absolute tier ones, we will look at some of the tier twos and continue to do so and speak to them, and hopefully we will see some outcome of that in the not too distant future. Next question, please. What are the top 3 goals you want to achieve in 2024? I think we have a number of goals, but clearly some of the stuff we already touched upon. Creating the awareness that Concordium deserves, creating the interest in the project that it deserves is clearly very important, and I think you can see that. You can see that expressed in the stuff that we do with stepping up marketing, with stepping up lead generation, with stepping up our direct sales approach and being more proactive there. So clearly, awareness and visibility is a very important goal. Liquidity, and it's kind of a result of that also generating, of course, more liquidity and more interest in the token on the exchanges where we are. Perhaps adding to ways that you can get involved with the project. That could also be other types of on-ramps than exchanges, but creating a more vibrant ecosystem around it, including more liquidity in the token and more activity altogether around us. And the third one, I think, is very interesting that you will hear more about before too long, is the Euro-E project, where we are coming out with a native licensed euro stablecoin. I think that is very important and will create a lot of interest in the space. Most of the current stablecoins are dollar denominated, and some of them are more trustworthy than others. But to have a euro-based native stablecoin with appropriate licensing, I think is quite important to generate the interest around that when we're ready with coming out with that, which should be in the next couple of months. So there are, of course, other goals around this, getting more projects, getting more corporate adoption, getting also some of our verticals, focusing on various verticals, making sure that we build out the infrastructure for those, engaging various existing projects with each other, because some of these can have great benefit from each other. But I would say awareness, liquidity, the Euro-E, and general attraction of projects is very high on the list of goals for 2024. Next question, please. Do you believe Concordium will surpass Ethereum? If yes, why? If no, why not? Depends what you mean by surpassing Ethereum. I think in many ways, both Concordium and several other blockchains are actually more suited for most applications than the base layer Ethereum, which is why there are so many layer 2s to actually facilitate that Ethereum can work efficiently. So I think in terms of quality, it's one question, and in terms of what you're actually building, I think that's one area. If you're talking market cap, then there's probably a bit of way to go, because Ethereum has the benefit of being an early mover, having a very, very loyal ecosystem around it. In fact, so loyal that they're willing to build and accept various fixes in order to make Ethereum work. I don't think it is in itself a particular sort of winner takes all space. Not at all, certainly not in any foreseeable future. So I think a number of blockchains will play an important role in this space going forward, and we obviously aim to be one of them. Next question. Netflix has a broad audience, always looking for exciting content. Your story of a forward-thinking, visionary, successful businessman could captivate viewers. Thank you very much. That's kind of you. What are your thoughts on the idea of a documentary? Well, in terms of me specifically, I'll leave that to Netflix to whether they think that's interesting enough. But and I don't want to go into too much detail because it's quite secretive. But we are actually cooperating in building out a documentary at the moment where several aspects are relevant, including Concordium. It's not the only message in this documentary. It's a very interesting total story. Now that's work in progress, but pre-sales of that have actually been done to a number of countries around the world, and I think it'll be a very fascinating story where Concordium will play a certain role, and we look forward to that. It has a fairly long delivery date, so I think it will easily be at least 9 months from now, but we are actually participating in the filming of a documentary at the moment, but I really can't say too much more about it at the moment. Next question, please. You travel a lot. I noticed the visit to Abu Dhabi. There's a lot of capital there. Can you share a bit about the purpose of that trip? Yes, I do travel a lot, and sometimes it's with Concordium and blockchain as number one or single objective. Other times it's with other objectives, but I try to make sure that if somebody wants to meet me in a place, then I make myself available for interesting opportunities. So yes, I try to get around the world a lot and try to make Concordium benefit from it as much as possible. There certainly is a lot of capital in Abu Dhabi. There's no question about that. One of the biggest concentrations in the world, and a lot of investment interest. I'm involved in a partnership there with some expats in Abu Dhabi, where we are presenting various projects to the various investment pools down there. So certainly not only about blockchain, but around a whole range of industries, and of course, building up those kind of relationship could be long-term beneficial to all of the types of projects that I and the partners are involved in. I'm not at this point in time really taking out Concordium to the major sovereign wealth fund investors there. I don't think the project is really for them at this point. But that being said, there are a couple of interesting projects where there could be more reason for involvement, and where Concordium does play some role, and we'll get back to that. But I think it's an interesting area. There's a very clear vision for where people want to take Abu Dhabi, and there's both the vision and the money to back it up, and that of course makes it a very interesting area, because if you know where you're going and you can afford it, that gives a lot of potential. So rest assured that nowhere I go do I not have Concordium in my pocket, and where it makes sense, it'll be brought up or be as a subject in its own, or perhaps as a part in projects where it would make sense to include Concordium. Next question, please. Concordium has marked itself as a chain serious companies should choose, thanks to the key differentiators. Does Concordium have a strong grip on the major companies? Does anyone in blockchain have a strong grip on the major companies? It depends a little bit what you mean here. I've already spoken about several specific and upcoming, which I would put into the category of major companies. So yes, we do have contact there, and we're obviously speaking to a number of them. Again, to repeat myself, I think that when blockchain really becomes big and has a transformative potential realized, that it does have to support a number of existing processes, and to move Web 2 to the next more secure and trustworthy space, I think blockchain plays a major role. And of course, that means some of the major companies adopting it. As I said, the interest in among corporates, among bigger companies is growing. It's still in many places an educational process, which we try to take part in. It's somewhere where You need to come with some examples, some specific ideas to how could this actually help your company and in what areas, right? Rather than just being a fluffy buzzword that blockchain still is to many people, right? So I don't know the definition of strong grip, but I do believe that we're speaking to a number of them, and that the interest is generally growing. And I think, as you mentioned, the key differentiators are very relevant to people that want to choose a safe route into this new space, which it is for most of them for obvious reasons. So we're keeping working with these. We keep talking to both big and small companies, and we will announce as and when we can, and as and when these are willing to do so, the progress that we're making in that space. Next question, please. Is something big cooking? We all remember the post of Lone with the Christmas sock asking Elon, can LSC do much better coming Christmas, New Year? And can we expect some great things around Christmas? A big present is coming for us all. Well, I always want to manage expectations. We did actually make a serious attempt at getting the attention of Twitter and X, and I would say still would of course love to work with something like that. Is it realistic or not? I can't say. But again, with the risk of repeating myself, we are working with a number of corporates, maybe not as visible as Twitter or X, as it's called today. So you will see some ongoing announcements. We're not particularly targeting Christmas over any other time, but we hope to be able to continuously tell you interesting stuff around new partnerships and new projects. Next question, please. If I remember correct, last I stayed in one of the latest AMAs, the goal is to play Champions League with Concordium. What's the status? I made a reference to the fact that I'm one of 3 owners of FC Copenhagen, and we are actually playing Champions League again this year for the 2nd year running. We have the smallest budget of any of the 32 clubs playing Champions League, but we're still there, and we've had a decent 3 matches so far. Today we're welcoming Manchester United here in Copenhagen. We'll take up most of the rest of my day. So it's more sort of a tongue-in-cheek reference to that. But you know, FC Copenhagen was not always a regular in Champions League. We've been there the last 2 years. Just shows that I like to be involved in ambitious projects, and that of course goes for Concordium as well, and has also succeeded a couple of times with making something fairly successful. So it's more reference to that, and of course, insofar as there is a Champions League in blockchain, we will see if we can enter that one as well. But for now, I would like to appreciate you crossing your fingers for us getting a good result against Manchester United tonight. A very exciting day here in Copenhagen, and a very exciting day for me and for FC Copenhagen. But we'll keep working hard on making Concordium an equal success in the long run. Next question, please. How big of a problem is it that CCD doesn't reflect the image of a world-class blockchain? I don't really know what you mean there. I have no doubt that we have a world-class blockchain. I mean, if you look at the team, you look at the science, you look at the technical implementation, you look at the solidity, the lack of incidents in our history, I think we are a world-class blockchain. If you mean the market cap doesn't reflect that, I kind of agree with you, but the market is the market, and I think there are other good projects out there that also don't have very impressive market caps, and at the same time, I think there's some distinctly unimpressive projects that have a very high market cap. And is that a problem? Of course, we'd rather be in a different place. I think at the end of the day, what we can do now is to make people more aware of Concordium, go out there and tell the world about it, get more people interested in, get more leads to our commercial department, do a more proactive sales outreach, and actually I think that's going quite well. I think some of the people we we have got in as projects would not be here if we were not a world-class blockchain. So it depends a little bit what you mean here, but rest assured, again, I believe we are building a world-class blockchain. I think the team around it is world-class, and ultimately we'll have to see if the market wishes to reflect that or not. Next question, please. The next transparency report will be shared in December 2023. Can we expect more details, for example, on-chain proof? Can we also know more about the conditions that need to be met to release tokens from the foundation? That's correct. I just reconfirmed that the transparency report will be forthcoming in December. There will be several expansions, call them improvements, but more information in there. The more specific things I would like to leave to the team preparing that, but of course we note what you're asking for, and we'll see where we can include it. But it's on target for December 2023, and it will be more extensive than our first version. Next question, please. The first wave of grant participants is about to launch their products or has already. What are the lessons learned regarding offering grants to startups? I think generally we are satisfied with the support that we give to startups and to help them get started. Maybe sometimes convert some code to fit to Concordium that they built for other purposes. Are they all equally successful? No, but that's like any other startup. I invested a lot in startups over the years, and some of them work out, some of them don't, and that's the nature of that game. So are there places where maybe it hasn't had the effect that we would want them to? Perhaps are there other places where we think great projects are being built, where we're a little helping hand to that? Absolutely. We're structuring our grant programs to be more specific in terms of deliveries. It's not that you just come and say, here's a nice PowerPoint, give me some money and off you go, and we hope for the best. Typically a grant is structured so that there's different stages of payments where you have to meet certain milestones in order to qualify for the next payment. And recently we also increasingly focused on actually delivering transactions, delivering activity as often a precondition for the last part of the ground. So of course we're learning on an ongoing basis. We also vet these grant applications quite carefully. In an earlier question, Blockchain Founders Group was mentioned, which is a startup incubator. We're actually going to run a program with them specifically around Concordium related startups, but sort of coming at the back end of serious organizations and their incubation programs, then the best coming to us, and then us doing our own assessment and selecting some of them. We are trying to make sensible decisions in who we give a grant to and who we don't. Typically, of course, grants are more directed at early stage, at startups. If you're talking a big corporate, they don't need a grant. They bring their own money to the table and build what they have to do. So by the nature of grants, they typically go to early stage companies, and in any business, early stage contains certain risks. Some will not work, and some will work, and some relatively few number will be extremely successful. And having invested in that space for many years, that is exactly how it works out, and that's how it works out for anybody really that invests in early stage. Some losers, some people that at least get off the ground and create a certain amount of traction, and a few winners that basically pays for the losses on the ones that never get off the ground. So that's the nature of startups. Grants are mostly for that. So that would be the picture you expect from that. But I think we have a number of very interesting startups that are about to launch projects, and where our grant has made a real difference to them in terms of getting getting to the line, and obviously also sometimes in the choice of blockchain. So that's where we deploy this. Next question, please. No question, but gratitude here. Thank you for providing merchandise to the Concordium Army. Thank you. In fact, we're the grateful ones here. So we thank the Concordium Army, which is sort of a self-induced project by some enthusiasts around Concordium, where they share interesting information that they can take out to the wider community. So we're very appreciative of that effort. If anybody wants to join the Concordium Army, which is a group of people that have taken a particular interest in Concordium and help us tell the story around, you can flag that in our main Telegram group, because I'm sure that they would welcome additional people to those activities, and we obviously try to support that as well as possible. So feel free to go and join the Concordium Army. The merchandise we launched in general, you can go to the shop and pick up various things related to Concordium, and actually we have been quite encouraged by the number of people that have engaged with the merchandise shop. So go have a look at it if you haven't seen it before. Incidentally, now that I'm on that note, if you haven't been to the Concordium website for a while, go check out our AI assistant there, which is in the lower right hand corner, which is an internal LLM, large language model, that actually quite professionally answers the majority of relevant questions that you might have to ask around Concordium. Don't rely entirely on it because it's a beta, but it's a good little thing to have there if you have questions that you want to ask. But what's very nice is also that it answers it in very many different languages, so it doesn't have to be only English if you're more comfortable in a different language. Next question, please. What's lacking on the new great-looking website is up-to-date info about Concordium, what Concordium has accomplished so far, and a product roadmap. I'm also missing a presentation of the complete team. Can this info be added to the website? Yes, the website is still, I guess, always be in a constant flux of development. We are aware of some of those aspects. Clearly, the team presentation will be added, and I know there's continuous work there, and there will be some additions inside the next few weeks. So we try to make it as full as possible. If you have good ideas for what could be on there, feel free to send them to us, share them with us in the community, and as always, we try to listen to what you would like to see and what we potentially are missing. So feel free to shoot off good ideas to us, and we'll prioritize them and put them on as we go along. But certainly the team presentation is on its way, and we would also do something around what the roadmap looks like. Next question, please. What is the Concordium privacy strategy besides privacy preserving identity of private assets and private smart contracts part of the roadmap? Well, I think we already have like the shielded accounts function whereby you can retain privacy around transfers. So of course, given that the ID is a pretty key differentiator for this blockchain compared to other layer ones, we are continuously thinking of how can we integrate that into aspects of the whole project as meaningfully as possible, and we'll continuously consider that and take those discussions with people where it's relevant. But I would point to, for example, shielded transaction as an actual existing example of that. Next question, please. How strong is the protocol level ID framework as a USP right now? What are typical industry use cases that consider this feature as mandatory? I think there's no question that an ID framework, be that protocol level or layer 2, is increasingly important. I think that's very clear and very obvious that a lot of business models around requires that you feel comfortable about who you're interacting with, and that people can identify themselves to you. Clearly, you can build that at a protocol level, or you can build it as a layer 2, and most people now sort of scrambling to get there with layer 2s because they didn't think it into the original framework, and perhaps even ideologically had a slightly different approach in early days. But I think it's becoming very evident to everyone now that there's a large number of bigger use cases where the availability of ID and the ability to prove that ID is very important. Where we think it makes a difference to have it at a protocol level is, of course, that it makes sure that you're not operating even with a layer 2 in an environment where some of the network is potentially unidentifiable or unable to identify itself with certainty. This is work in progress, also in people's understanding. I have zero doubt that ID will be crucially important for developing this industry into a mainstream feature, and hence building in it at the protocol level, I think solves a lot of problems. That means that you have to rely on one point of failure less. The more you have to use a blockchain and a layer 2 for this, for ID, and a layer 2 for scalability, the more complex your project becomes, and the more points of failure you will have in that. So the more you can make the layer 1 handle the essential stuff that it can handle, the more the layer 2s and the projects can focus on where they really add value. So layer 1 should, in my view, have the ID. It should be scalable. It should have finality. It should have stable fees. And unsurprisingly, those are some of the things we focused on. But it's clear that anything to do with TradFi, of course, ID is essential, but it's spreading much wider than that today. People want to know that they're dealing with real individuals and organizations. They want to make sure they're dealing with legit individuals and organizations, and it will only get more important. The distinction between layer 2 and layer 1, I think, is a little bit for fine-makers that are already engaged in the space. I think there's a lot of arguments for having it at the layer 1 level, and now we have it. So it is a USP, and I think more and more people will as they explore the space more, will probably see that as the better way to solve it. But it can also be solved by a layer 2 solution with the added complexity that it adds to have to go to several places to get the same product. Next question, please. Can you tell us more about the EURE stablecoin in regards to use cases and market demand? Well, I touched a little bit upon it already. I think it's a very interesting project. I think what is that it's euro and not dollar. That's 25 million consumers in the EU, which actually relates much more directly to euro than to dollar, compared to 360 million consumers and citizens in the US. But of course, the US has a much broader reach in around the world than the euro has of yet. Might be changing. I think a lot of sort of emerging markets are not as dollar focused as they would have been 20 years ago. So euro could play a bigger role, but I think just the demand in euro itself is very significant, and it's enough to justify not just one but multiple euro stable coins. The important thing here is that it's a licensed licensed euro stable coin. It's native to Concordium, so of course it will be an asset that you can use on the DEX. It's an asset you can use for paying use cases in some cases where that's more relevant than CCDs. And I think in general, we know that stablecoins is perhaps the major use case in the market today, with being part of 80-90% of all transactions. So clearly, as people want to move in and out of tokens back to more stability, back to tokens, they play a very significant role. And I think we found a very good partner here that is very serious about building a credible and trustworthy product, and look very much forward to launching it in the not too distant future. Next question, please. Are the private instances of Concordium with integration to mainnet in use or requested by the market? Not a lot, but that is an option if you want to take a private instance and do your own consensus, for example. That is a possibility. In effect, that's what we're working on with Geely, where there are different rules in China to some of the ways that you operate a blockchain. So that is at least one upcoming instance. We don't have an awful lot of others, but if you do see a place where that would be relevant and you would see a benefit from a private consensus mechanism, for example, it's something we are able to work with. So feel free to bring such use cases to us. Next question, please. How important do you see on-chain credit and lending for the Concordium ecosystem? I think it is important. It is an area that you will notice have gone down in activity in the last year or two, maybe because some of these platforms are not construed in a way where it sort of is recognizable for people that know credit and lending from the TradFi system. Clearly, uncollateralized lending has fallen off a cliff in recent months and the past couple of years. So, but of course, credit and lending is a critical component to any financial system, and hence also important for the Concordium ecosystem. We are looking at various possible solutions for that, and we definitely have it high on our agenda as a natural addition to the whole DeFi ecosystem. Next question, please. The trends seem that blockchains are converging and becoming more interoperable. How relevant do you see it that I can mint my Concordium ID as an NFT and to use on another blockchain hosted applications such as Uniswap V4? I think you're right. Clearly, this space is rather fragmented today. Over time, we will need to see more interoperability between various blockchains in order for the space to prosper. Number of projects out there trying to achieve that, and it's clearly of importance for the space long-term health. I think the ability to have a portable ID is a very good idea, and something that we have also looked into as part of our whole ID development. So absolutely conceivable that we will have that as a service at some point in the future. And in fact, going back to the question about other blockchain collaborations, this is an item that many blockchains identify as a problematic aspect of their particular project. So there is also a demand for portable IDs that can be used in other blockchains and in projects and applications hosted on other blockchains. Next question, please. Digital bond and real-world assets is proving to be the strongest link between traditional finance and Web3, which is at the core what Concordium is about. What would we expect in this regard? Kind of touched on that aspect a little bit earlier. I do think that tokenization of assets, be those real-world assets or digital assets, has great potential. It's a very obvious use case for blockchain. It's something where there is clearly a lot of enhancements you could do in terms of security of ownership, of instant transfer and settlements, etc. And having spent a very long time in traditional finance, I fully know how many pain points there are in things like settlement, transfers, ownership, etc. So we have a lot to add to that space. I also think it'll be the obvious door opener to traditional finance. As mentioned, we have a couple of use cases working on various aspects of this, and I'm also discussing one very interesting one, I would say, in traditional finance with with a partner, but again, that we'll have to release that information as and when there's something agreed to release. Next question. It seems like that was the last question of the day, which means that we're hitting the 1 hour mark pretty accurately, so that's great. Again, I would like to thank you all for tuning in, for sending these questions. Keep them coming. Very happy to answer them. If we miss one, we'll take it later. So it's important for us both as our feedback to you, but also your feedback to us. So very grateful if you will keep them coming in. I'll be back in about a month's time to answer some more. But as you probably noticed, we have stepped up the number of AMAs in all sorts of areas quite significantly in recent months, and will continue to do so because we think it's a very good format for interacting with the community and telling about what we're doing and getting the chance to obviously answer your questions. So keep them coming. And again, I would say the team here is working very hard on awareness and visibility and getting the word out there in many different formats. You can play a role in that. You can help us by sharing, by linking, by liking, by posting various content on your particular social media channels and other places. So we very much appreciate where you help us in this process, because clearly the community has a big role to play as an amplifier of what we're doing here from our side. So thank you for all your support. Look forward to a number of interesting campaigns and announcements up to the end of the year. And in the meantime, wish me luck with FC Copenhagen tonight against Manchester United. Thank you very much, and I hope you continue to have a great week. Thank you for listening in.